Seville, with approximately 1,800,000 inhabitants, is one of the most important cities in Spain, not only because it is the bearer of much Claretian history, but also because it is a place rich in culture and touristic places. For this and more, today we bring you Claretians Around the World, Sevilla version. Well, but first we must be in Sevilla, where my partners Nicolas Tamayo and Samuel Castilblanco are going to talk about us of the geographic location and the touristic places.
Geographic location of Sevilla. Sevilla is the south of the Iberian Peninsula in the center of the autonomous community of Andalusia. Sevilla, the capital of Andalusia, is the fourth city in Spain in terms of number of inhabitants in the province. There are 1,834,070 inhabitants spread of an area of 14,042 square kilometers, just 6 meters above the sea level in the middle of the Vega and the countryside of the Guadalajara River. It forms a urban agglomeration that extends toward Alhajara, Lomas Millas, the Doña National Park, the Sierra Norte, and the Sierra Sur.
Touristic places. As we know, Sevilla is the capital of Andalusia in the south of the country, Spain. Some touristic places more interesting in Sevilla are the Plaza de España. It's the perfect place that you can back to the past and find beautiful past architecture doing a walk across the Rhine. This is important because it's a place that represents the love of Spain to the past and all of the things that Spain do in the past. Museum of Bellas Artes. This museum is the most recognized place in Sevilla. It has exhibition of the most relevant students in Brook School and large invited exhibitions. Being free entrance is the best place that you can visit. Setas de la Encarnación. And finally, the most surprising work in the architecture of Sevilla by the artist Eugen Mauger. How you can see, it's a monumental in a square that makes the illusion of a sponge.
Okay, now that we know all of this, it's getting a little hungry, isn't it? So I think it's time to talk about the cocido madrileño, and we will touch on how to prepare it and the nutritional information.
What is the cocido madrileño? The cocido madrileño is by or to say the most typical one of the most typical dishes in Madrid, whose main ingredient is a chickpeas as a secondary ingredient, although with a great prominence of various vegetables, meats, and pork bacon and some sausage.
Recipe for the cocido madrileño. First, put the chicken pews in a bowl, cover them with water and put them in a freezer. Let them soak overnight. Dry them, place them in a net, and set them in a side. After that, put plenty of water in a pot, 2 liters and a half. Add the black pudding, the bacon, the ham, and the bone. Season, and heat when it starts to boil. Remove the foam and the chicken pews and remove the foam again. Cover and cook for 30 minutes after the steam starts to come out. Open the pot and remove a little of the broth, another saucepan, and put it in a head. Chop the cabbage and place it in the saucepan where the chicken broth is heating. Also add the chorizo and blow something. Season, cover everything with the lid on for 15 minutes. Finally, peel the potatoes and carrots and add them whole to the pot of the chicken pews. And also add the chicken tin. Cover it again and cook everything for 10 minutes more. Serve everything in a large ladle. Eliminate the garlic, fry it in a pan with a little of oil. Spin it with a chopped parsley, water the plate, and serve the cocido madrileño.
In conclusion, the dish is not nutritious. It's a dish with many calories for a single peso, without saying that it provides few proteins. We could say that its food only provides calories and going to an extreme, no far from a reality. Then just you are dieting, this dish is not the best option by far.
Well, something is missing. That's the way our school is called Claret. We haven't really talked about it yet. This is why now we are going to give a little bit of Claretian's history.
Claretian in Seville. All through the history, the Claretian began in Barcelona. Seville is also a place with a history and Claretian intervention, such as foundation, a school, and medical service, found in Seville, Spain. But how did the history of Seville begin? As one of the most important moments from Claretian Seville are those the 16 Martyrs. The important dates. Claretian virus was on the 20th of the 1807, the life of the Congregation of the Missionary Sons of the Immaculate Heart of Mary begins on July 16 of 1849. The first religious school in the city was created by the Claretians on July 16 of the year 1869. The death of the Claret was on October 24 of the year 1870. A couple starts a civil war on July 70 of the year 1936. The death of the 16 martyrs because the war was on July 28 of the year 1930.
Who are the 16 martyrs? In the year 1936, a group of missionaries in the middle of the Civil War, they tried to send the message of love and peace in the middle of the destruction and the death. They saved a lot of young lives, and finally, in an attempt of saving their lives, they were intercepted and shot on July in the same year.
That's right, it was a really dark age for our history. But the things does not end here. With Claret since before all this, of course, he also helped to abolish the slavery.
Slavery in America. Slavery in America was a time when a part of the indigenous population was enslaved and dominated by the Spanish, as well as having slaves from Africa who worked hard through the Spanish power in America. There were slaves until one day they became liberals, but before that were several attempts to abolish slavery, as the Claret did. Father Claret was really interested in beginning to avoid evangelizing and the people correctly, including those of black race. This is why the entire Claretian movement made a great process in the process of abolition of slavery. All through the metropolis of all this imagination was in America, in Cuba.
Well, the history continues in Cuba, where my partner Juan Camilo Herrera is going to tell us a little about it. After Claret left a great mark on the European continent, Claret decided to decline on the American continent, more specifically in Cuba, where most of the Claretian movements in America were based. Although all this was not easy, as in attack on Claret, where an important slave trader and the favorite of the Spanish colonies, called Antonio Abad Torres, tried to assassinate Claret with a dagger direct to the neck. Although in a quick movement, he ended up penetrating the cheek, from which Claret recovered quickly. Other action that Claret do in Cuba was the marriage between different races. This in that time wasn't permitted. In that time it was forbidden by the authorities, so Claret do it possible. The resistance and the people that was in against it Crusade versus Claret, because those people want to maintain the colonial stability that according to them was ended by the transgeneration of racial borders. Claret dominated the slaves in colonies in the decade of 1855. All of this demonstrates that Claret was an important anti-slave figure in the history and took important steps to abolish the slavery in America. Well, now last but not least, we are going to talk about some small artistic samples from Spain, where a renowned urban artist named Francisco José Guijarro is going to help us with some samples of Spanish language.
Llegando la Navidad, emoción, mostrar el pesebre colocar, juntos festejar.
En diciembre, Navidad, sin excepción, natilla y buñuelo, come el glotón.
Espléndido el día, con luces, amor, alegría y dicha. Vive su sabor.
Para regalos tener, para disfrutar. Asertivo debe ser, para escrutar.
Ay, ¿hasta quién te dijo que te tengo que pedir permiso? No. ¿Quién dijo que yo soy un trapito viejo para tirarme por el piso? Sola, solea. Yo me resuelvo sola, solea. Ten cuidado con lo que diga, cuidado, que a mí nada se me olvida. Vamos a hacerlo por la buena, o mejor no hagamos nada. Ay, mira niño, no me des más guerra, tú no me conoces por la mala. Vamos a hacerlo por la buena, o mejor no hagamos nada. Que si la sangre se me envenena, me sale la gitana. Me sale la gitana. Esto es porque dice que me quiere, luego me maldice, qué cosa que se contradice, pero yo no dejo que me pise. Así que empieza la jugada, tú a mí nunca me verás arrodillada.
In the paint, you can appreciate the beautiful landscape with some pins and some fauna like the bird. In the top, the central mountain, you can see a beautiful sun in the sunset. A heart. This is not a common heart. It's the Immaculate Heart of Mary. This type of heart have an important relation with claret.
In the drawing, the first thing you will notice is the shield of our skull, but with some modifications, such as the pin rods around the shield that represents the claret union with Sevilla. We can also see the pilgrim eagle common in the area, or in the back the high mountains of Madrid, and I use the technique of dry brush and palette technique from the mountains.
Okay, in this drawing we can see the Father Claret giving the word of the Lord in the snowy mountain of Spain, next to the Montes Cat and some pines of the ecosystem, and the technique used was that of the get brush.
In the background, we can appreciate a little of the old house in Spain, where the privilege began at the service of the gospel. Like, but a little, it was welcomed by the children and young people until the community has welcomed him as their pastor. On the sides, we can appreciate the hills and mountains of Spain, that the city of the origin of the Claretian community. Later on, we see that the eagle that expresses the freedom to choose the path that you want to follow, as well as how high you want to reach.
Well, this was it. We were able to see the wonder of Sevilla and learn a little more about the history of Claret. Thanks for watching.
Tendrás a tu hombre, piel morena, desde el cielo habló la luna llena, pero a cambio quiero el hijo primero que le engendres a él.
Quien a su hijo inmola para no estar sola, poco le iba a querer.
con un niño de piel. Ah, 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 ah.